Right, thank you for joining us today. Today's session is going to be really practical. So we're not sending any business case or stats or figures or anything like that at you today. We're taking a really practical look at how, as a leader, you can really kind of lead on building team connection. And the reason that's important, without throwing stats and figures at you, is it has a huge impact on engagement, performance, the feel of your team, the environment and experience you're creating for your team. So that's why building team connection is really important. And you are centered to that. And the reason I'm saying that is actually you role model it. You can instigate it. You are a starter of it. So that's what Zoe and I are going to talk about today. So Zoe and I have done a couple of streams. Are we on number 3 now? We're on number 3, aren't we?
Oh my goodness.
So you can find us in different locations for those. So today we're on the Purple Sky Consulting site. So my company page, so I'm Anwen Botois. One of the other ones is on mine, and then one of the others is on Zoe's. So Zoe Paulson. So go and find her there. You'll be able to find them all on our YouTubes as well. So that'll be easy to connect.
I can feel this session today, because for everyone listening, Anwen and I have been on for about 15 minutes chatting, and it's been one of those mornings already, hasn't it? But we just roll with it. You just got to keep going. And we've actually just been speaking about a bit of entrepreneurship and how you just got to keep going and keep going. And today we're like, whatever happens, just keep going through this live.
And this is part of it, isn't it? This is part of the reality of building authenticity and relationships and showing a little bit about who you are. This is the fun stuff. So the team building stuff is absolutely the fun stuff that sits under leadership. And this is certainly an area that I really enjoyed spending my time. And if you don't enjoy spending your time with your team and you're in a leadership role, I'm going to say the hard truth now of why on earth are you in a leadership role? Because I think this is just the core, the essence of it. You can learn to love this stuff, by the way. So just because you maybe struggle with it now, or you find it challenging, or you don't enjoy it, I definitely say that I've grown to love it through the years. So initially, as an introvert, I found that quite challenging and hard to kind of give my time and my energy and my attention to people. But as I learned actually the value of it and the benefit of it, the more I lent into that. And I think the more value you get as a result of kind of really enjoying that team building and that team connection part of things. What do you think about that, Zoe?
Yeah, I think, oh my goodness, I had a thought and it's just flown straight out my head then. Let me go with a different thought. I think I've just been working at the Royal Military Academy Sandhurst last week for 2 days, and they're all about servant leadership. So we lead to serve the people we're leading. So it's all about servant leadership and how do I help the group? How do I serve my team? And I think it's really interesting. I taught talking about a separate group I taught in change management last year. They were going through a massive restructure, and one of the ladies on the call was just quite worried. And I said to her, what's worrying you most about this restructure? And she said, well, I've been in this role, quite a mid-level role, for about 7 years, and I love what I do, but I've on purpose never had a team. And I went, okay, fine. And she said, and suddenly overnight in this restructure, I have a team of about 15 people and I don't know what to do. And she was petrified is a little bit too strong maybe, but she was just like, what do I do? And it just makes you realize that actually, first of all, some people don't want to lead teams, and that's absolutely fine as well. She was quite happy. She got given a team, but there's also the training that must come with it when you have a team, because it's all about getting to know them. And if that is not your preference, if you are maybe very, introverted, you can flip between introversion and extroversion, but if you are very you like to just get on with your work, on your own, if you like working solo, and then you're suddenly given people, because you're not just looking at their work, you're looking after their welfare as well, and understanding what motivates them, and understanding actually what makes them tick. So it can be really hard.
Absolutely. Whole person piece, isn't it? And it's looking at it beyond kind of just the tasks. And especially as you move into more senior roles, your influence, your shadow, it often gets called, your light, however, which way you want to describe that, is really important. So we're going to look at 3 kind of areas that are very low time commitment, actually. Really low time commitment, but they are regular practices that you can have throughout your week that are more about how you are showing up and how you're interacting with your team, rather than it necessarily needing to be big, massive tasks. So we're going to look at connecting. We're going to look at how you celebrate and how you bring gratitude into the team as well. Because those are three really great ways for you to have impact in the team, but how you can encourage that across the team as well. So this is about how they interact with each other, how they connect with each other. So it's not just about you, but what is really important is that you are leading on that you are demonstrating that way forward. So I simply call this connection bit the say hello. This first one, and you would be surprised, or you maybe won't be surprised, how many times you've worked in an office and the big bosses walk past and they don't even acknowledge that their team are sat there. How frustrating is that? Yes, you might be feeling, I don't want to interrupt their day, but actually, if they're in the middle of something, they're not going to worry about you. But if they see you and they recognise that you haven't acknowledged them in any way, shape, or form, that certainly isn't going to have a positive impact on how they feel about you or how they feel about approaching you. So just take that moment to say hello. And that is as easily done in a hybrid and remote world. It's not as easy as just walking through the office and saying hello, and that's a quick thing done and it's done. So yeah, absolutely, when it's remote or hybrid, you might need to think about it slightly differently. So this is about kind of getting into those virtual spaces that you have with your team. If you don't have virtual spaces with your team, I'd be surprised if you're working in a hybrid and remote way. But it's how you leverage those. So it's about how you check in. It could be about asking questions, just kind of going, hi, this is what I've got going on today, or I've got this really difficult challenge I'm dealing with this week. Anybody got any thoughts? It's just about creating that connection and that opportunity to go, I see you, but in a very non-sinister way. So this isn't about checking up on them. This is about engaging. It could go really wrong. I see you, but it's not about that. It's about showing up. Absolutely. What do you think about that connecting?
I think you're right. I think
absolutely.
Yeah, I think I've written a couple of things down actually as you're chatting, because I always say to people, leadership is a team sport. You are not on your own as a leader. It is a team sport, because not only are you the leader, you're part of the team as well. And I think by, connecting with people, by saying hello, I know I used to, when I worked as a head of HR and I had 20 people on my floor plate and I had my office in the corner, but it was part of the room, but it had like glass panels and stuff. So I was in the room, but also separate for those, sometimes having to close the door and have conversations. But I used to spend at least half an hour on a Monday morning going around and talking to the people in the room and literally just going, how was your weekend? Yeah. What did you get up to? Because not only was I interested in what they were saying, I was interested in how they felt, because that kind of sets the tone for the week. So if someone says to me, I've had a really horrific weekend, I'm like, brilliant. So not brilliant, literally not brilliant, but great, because I now know that, and I can just look out for you a little bit more, or I can get, if I've got a really nice task coming up, I'm like, actually, I'm going to give that to that person because I want to up their morale. And I think the second thing I wrote down is, it's that role modeling piece, isn't it? So if we're walking through the office and we're saying hello and we're talking to people, in organizations, that's how we want our teams to treat our customers. So it's the ripple of, actually, I'm going to role model to you how I now want you to be treating other people. And I think that's a really important piece, that role modeling.
Yeah, absolutely. And you're role modeling, but also you're, like you mentioned, you're taking the temperature of what's going on. You're getting a feel for the energy of the team. It's data. It's really important data as a leader to kind of go, what's actually going on here? I might have had feedback in one way that actually this is how it feels, but actually by going in and having those conversations and interacting in your own way, you're allowed to make those decisions for yourself a little bit. So that's connect. Next up is to celebrate. And what I don't mean here is just kind of rah-rah on everything. Absolutely not. This is about looking at where are the successes in the week, where are the things that are misses, things that haven't gone to plan. Talk about it, actively talk about the things that are going on across the team, and see those as opportunities to celebrate, because they're opportunities to learn, and share those. Share your own celebrations of losses and successes as well. And that encourages that brings it out across the team, and it helps them to look at ways of doing that for themselves. So getting them to kind of recognize that in other people as well, and celebrate and go, I saw that you did that and that went really well. Or what can we learn from the thing that went really badly? That's a way of you instigating that type of conversation across the team. And it really helps people to feel positive about their days. I've seen, really great practices where people will kind of do a shout out at the end of the week, where the things that have gone really well or the things that they've learned about, but actually encouraging other people to do that. So yes, as a leader, step into that space, start the behavior, create the opportunity for that behavior to be viewed as a positive thing, and enable them to keep it going. It doesn't all have to be about you. It is about bringing that in. And hey, isn't that more fun than not? This is about spreading joy. It's about bringing that energy into the team. What do you think, Zoe?
I'm just laughing because I used to like to bake, and this was pre-COVID. I'd like to say I used to really enjoy baking, and occasionally I'd take cupcakes in on a Friday afternoon because we'd be celebrating the fact it was Friday afternoon. And that's a small thing, isn't it? But it always, everyone, of course, the weeks that I didn't, I was in trouble. But it's generally those little celebrations, and I think something I learned quite early on in my career when I was in leadership, because as some people watch this know, I'm ex-military, so I was in the Royal Air Force for 16 years, and we get what we call command positions or leadership positions quite early on. And I think I was like 24 when I got my first, leadership position, looking after people. So I learned from a very young age, and that was almost 20 years ago now. Some people, you've got to really get to know people to understand how they like to celebrate. Some people absolutely thrive on being called out and like, well done, everyone, round of applause. Some people, you will just lose them, because I'm one of them. I'm like, oh my goodness, don't look at me. I had it last week when I finished my work at Sandhurst, and they were giving all the instructors a round of applause, and I was thinking, and I was group 3, so they went group 1, group 2, and I'm thinking, oh my goodness, it's coming to me. Oh, what do I do? And bless them, I got the biggest round of applause, but I was like, oh gosh, oh my goodness, don't look at me. But I found that out when I had my own team, and I had this one girl who, she was so lovely, and she was quite shy, and she was amazing at her job. And I knew that when she'd done something well, it would usually filter back to me, because people would come and say, oh, this person, let's call her Zoe. I'm a Zoe, let's call her Zoe. Zoe did this really well. I'm like, thanks very much. And I just walk up to her and tap her on the shoulder and say, good job on whatever it was. That all it had to take, just tap on the shoulder and say, really good job on that. And she'd beam. But if I'd done that publicly, she would have just withered. She would have hated it. So it is, for me, really getting to know your people. And I mean, we talked about this offline as well, about actually when you onboard people, because that's a time that you can really get to know the people you're bringing into your team. When you onboard them, take the time to understand what are their aspirations, what are their challenges, what do they see as their challenges, what do they want you to do to help them with those challenges, all that kind of stuff.
Absolutely. And I think that getting to know your team is all part of this as well. It might be you don't get this right perfectly. That's okay. It's not the end of the world. It's learning from that. And it's another way of getting to know your team and building that connection and building that relationship. And again, it's having that humility to go, that didn't work for you, did it? What is it that I need to know about you now that I didn't realize I didn't know about you, that would help me to kind of create a better experience for you? And that's really important. And that example ticks really nicely into our third one, which is gratitude. And thank you, acknowledgement is absolutely incredible. Like, yes, a bonus is beautiful. Of course it is. It might pay for something for a moment, but the value just of those little thank yous, and it doesn't have to be for big stuff. It can be for little stuff. And I think this is where great gratitude across the team is along with that celebration piece, is a really lovely way to build connection across the team. So how can you encourage people to be grateful for each other and with each other, so that they create that environment of recognizing each other in a really positive way? And it can be thank you, but it could also be, I noticed you did this. Or, yes, of course that can go with a thank you, but sometimes it's more than that. Sometimes it's about really kind of recognizing the thing itself, not just the individual. But obviously, the individual has been part of enabling that to happen, and they've taken those steps to do that. So it's about noticing all the small little things. And again, just take a moment to notice those things. It doesn't take a lot of time, but the impact and the ripple effect of doing that is massive for the individual, but also what the team see and how they can then start replicating that. And when you start seeing it being replicated, that's where you step in and celebrate. That's where you demonstrate that gratitude as well as a leader, to go, I really love the way you recognized what X did there. That was really lovely. Yeah. Thank you for doing that. Again, it creates that impact on the team for taking some of that behavior forward as well. Personal gratitude as well, I think, is a really important theme for you to encourage. So whether it's journaling, whether it's sharing it on a blog, whatever that looks like, how do you get people to be thinking about what they are grateful for on an individual basis? And that can be personal stuff, but it also could be about what they're grateful for how their work has gone that week, that month, in the space that they're in. It's really good for self-esteem. It's really good for building self-confidence, and creating that practice across your team, again, is about building that connection. You absolutely could be encouraging them to share with each other things that they're grateful for of each other, so that can then build their own personal gratitude diaries or journals or kind of notes, whatever, however they do that. But really encouraging that as a practice is a positive thing for you to be doing as a leader. How about you, Zoe? What do you think?
So I very much sit not always, but quite often I sit gratitude with self-compassion. If we're talking about gratitude so two things, gratitude for ourselves, I'm really bad at going and the next thing and the next thing and the next thing and beasting myself to do everything at once. And sometimes I really have to sit and reflect and think, bloody hell, how far have you come in the last year? Look at all these, a year ago, I didn't have my change course. It wasn't CPD certified. I hadn't, put people through it. I hadn't got the 5-star reviews. And actually, that's not luck. That's sheer hard work and grit and determination. And I'm grateful that I've been able to invest that time in myself to do that. And that's that gratitude and being compassionate, where sometimes I'm like, oh my goodness, I'm exhausted. It's like, yeah, take a break because you've done loads. So I think for me, for the gratitude for myself, it comes to that self-compassion. I'm going to tell you a really brief story on something that happened, and it was 2017, so it was a while ago now. But something I saw that will stick with me. I was head of HR in this team, and I was trying to create a team culture of helping each other, being compassionate, sharing the workload, seeing where people are struggling and stepping in a very subtle way to help people, all that kind of stuff. Because I wanted to create that really strong, cohesive team. And one Friday afternoon, I was in the military, and I had the power not to raise people's pay, but to maybe let them go a little bit early from work, as long as someone was there to sort of man the desks, man the phones. And it was one afternoon, and on a Friday, I think it was about 3:00, and I knew quite a few people were driving distances to go home. And I said, oh, I'll tell you what, I'm going to stay because I've got work to do. I'll man the phones, I'll man the, the door and everything. You guys feel free. Off you go. Have a good weekend. Thanks so much for all your work this week. And everyone started to get the jackets on, a few whoops as everyone leaves for the weekend. And there was one girl who sat down, and she had this pile of paperwork. And I was watching from my office in the corner. I could see through the door, but I could hear as well. One of the other girls came over and said, oh, are you coming? Are you coming out? Are you coming? We're going to go and do this. And she went, I can't. I've got to get through this stuff. I've had stuff going on this week. I've not got through it. I need to get it finished. The other girl, let's call her Charlotte. She went, oh, okay, took her jacket off, took her hat off because we were hats in the military, sat down, grabbed half and said, well, I'll tell you what, why don't I take half of these and we'll get them done even quicker. I could have cried, Anwen, at this point. I felt like closing my door and having a little weep, because that is what I was trying to build.
Yeah.
But the lovely piece of gratitude that came from this was the girl, Hayley, who she was helping, was like, are you sure? It's like, yeah, do it. On the Monday, when we all came back into work, and they did get it finished quicker, I personally went to Charlotte and said, I saw what you did. I was so impressed. Thank you so much for embodying that. And she was like, oh, it's no problem. And that's when I knew it embedded. But Hayley came over to Charlotte and said, thank you so much, because actually I got home early enough to go and watch my son or whatever play football. Yeah, it was I got home in time to do something that was really important to me.
Yeah.
And I just thought, wow, that is what gratitude looks like. That just thank you, because this is what it meant I could do. But absolutely. Yeah, I'll remember that forever, because I was so proud of them.
I'm not surprised. And those are the beautiful moments in leadership roles, isn't it? It's seeing those things happen and knowing that there is a positive impact for those individuals and that you've brought those people closer together. And that is what building teams is about. It's creating that space where I will go the extra mile for you. I trust you. I've got your back. And that's a really positive place for you to be, because that's how you get stuff done. That's how we get stuff done as leaders with our teams. But that has to come from a place of creating the space for that to happen and to enabling that and to have the behaviours in place that kind of reinforce that and bring it to life. So those are the three areas that we think that are really critical, but in a good, positive way that doesn't take a lot of time. This isn't about big meetings to build connection and team building. These are the little moments that matter every day, in tiny little moments that all contribute to those types of experiences that you've shared there, Zoe. That all adds up into that space. So say hello. Celebrate things. It's about creating the conversation. It's about bringing people together and kind of looking at those things and really bring that gratitude piece to life. So encourage that across the team from a self perspective, and absolutely connecting it to that self-compassion. And self-compassion, I think, is such a really important area to look at as well, and how that crosses over with well-being. So those three: say hello, celebrate, show gratitude, and encourage gratitude. So those would be the three practices that we'd really encourage you to focus on if you want to build more connection across your team and with individuals within your team. That's a great way of doing that. And I think that piece that Zoe touched on around knowing your team, what works for them, that will build as well. The more you get to know your team, the more you will understand the things that actually really work for them in that gratitude and that celebration space as well. Connect with us both on LinkedIn. Feel free to kind of reach out to us if you've got any questions or any thoughts on the back of this. I've got a PDF available for these three key areas to build relationships. So if you want hold of that, just drop me a direct message. Happy to send that over to you. And otherwise, we will see you next week.